It's November 20th today, and unfortunately I have some more bad news. I'm sure we all know that 2 days ago the WHO finally released the protein sequences taken from the victims in Ukraine. These samples, the ones taken from the lungs of the dead victims, showed that there had been a mutation at protein number 225, and now it's become D225G at that location, which enables the virus to replicate much better inside human lung tissues, and that's what's causing the massive spike in pneumonic symptoms over there. The lungs are just turning black, and it's mostly young, healthy people that are affected by this hemorrhaging. Now, unfortunately, I came across a New York Times article today, and this article has some very disturbing facts in it. But it's even more disturbing how how they're just trying to hide the information in here by using different wording. Okay, the article is entitled "Signs that Swine Flu Wave has Peaked in the U.S." So it's trying to downplay the whole event. And then once you get about halfway down the article, it starts saying that Norway reported finding a mutated virus in 3 people who died or were severely ill. The mutation, known as D222G on the receptor binding domain, allows the virus to grow deeper in the lungs. Okay, now what's disturbing is they call this mutation D222G. But then later on in the article, it refers to D225G that Henry Nyman has been talking about, and it says, quote, D225G, the same mutation under a different numbering system that has been repeatedly found in Ukraine. Okay, so they're talking about D222G up here, and then it says in the next sentence that Henry Nyman's D225G, which is a mutation in Ukraine, is actually the same thing. They're just using a different numbering system. It's not a different mutation a few locations up on the protein sequence. No, they're just using a different numbering system. It's like, what year is it today? Is it 2009? Or going by some different calendar, is it 1500? It's just different numbers, but it's the same exact thing. And there's some even more disturbing implications from this article. They say that it starts off, Norway reported finding a mutated virus in 3 people who died or were severely ill. The mutation, known as D222G or D225G on the receptor binding domain, allows the virus to grow deeper in the lungs. The mutation does not appear to be circulating and may have spontaneously arisen in 3 patients, said Geir Steen Larsen, director of the Norwegian Institute of Public Health. Only 3 of Norway's 70 tested samples had it. Okay, now what's disturbing about this clever wordplay is that from every virologist that I've heard from the analysis of this D225G, it's really only testing positive in the lung samples, and the only way to get lung tissue samples is if the patient's already dead. Every time they test for this D225G, it shows up negative when they take a throat swab or a nasal swab. And that's just because, the testing isn't perfect. Some reason, the D225, it's found deeper inside the lung. So just because they tested negative for it in a throat swab or a nasal swab doesn't mean they didn't have this. Okay, so they're saying that it's not a big deal. Only 3 of the 70 had it, but it says that 3 of the 70 that they took it out of were dead or severely ill. So that means that they took it from the lung samples. That means they were dead. Okay, they're just trying to cover this up. First of all, they deny that. They say, yeah, this mutation was found there, but it's not a big deal because nobody really had it. But they don't say that the tests only show that those people didn't have it. It doesn't mean it's not true. And then they changed the name of the whole thing because they think that we're all too stupid to put 2 and 2 together and realize that this mutation in Norway is actually the exact same one that's happened in Ukraine. So this shows that the virus is already spreading through Europe, and there's been speculation that it spread to Ontario, Canada, and maybe even Pittsburgh. Pretty much anywhere where you see a huge spike in the number of deaths, as opposed to the number of infections, that there has been this mutation there.